We began 11 episodes ago with a promise that this series would not ask Judaism to borrow legitimacy from outside itself and would not flatten every tradition into a single indistinguishable spiritual soup. I want to spend our last episode together honoring that promise by being precise about what we have actually established and what we have not. Here is what I believe holds up under real scrutiny, having tested it across 10 episodes of specific comparison rather than vague gesture. Human beings across radically different times and places, Hellenistic Egypt producing the current that fed into the Kybalion, and the sages of the land of Israel and Babylonia producing Sefer Yetzirah, the Zohar, and the Talmud, independently arrived at strikingly similar structural claims about the nature of reality. That mind, not brute matter, is fundamental, that the large and the small mirror each other, that stillness is an illusion laid over constant motion, that opposing forces are two poles of one spectrum rather than a battle between a good side and a bad side, that time and history move in rhythmic cycles rather than straight lines, that cause and effect operates with moral precision rather than blind mechanism, and that creation itself proceeds through relationship rather than solitary self-sufficiency. That convergence, arrived at independently, is genuinely significant. It suggests these are not arbitrary cultural inventions. They are closer to discoveries, features of how reality is actually put together, visible to careful observers regardless of which language they were looking in. Here is what I want to state with equal clarity, because blurring it would betray the whole project. Convergence on structure is not equivalence of traditions. The Jewish articulation of these principles arrives bound to a covenant, a specific people, a specific historical relationship with God dating to Sinai, and an unbroken chain of legal and textual transmission spanning 3,000 years, still actively practiced today by millions of people in precise, disciplined form. The Hermetic articulation, at least in its most commonly available modern form, the Kybalion, is a 20th century synthesis without that covenantal weight or that continuous legal tradition standing behind it. Valuable as philosophy, but not carrying the same claim on human life that the Torah makes on the life of a Jew. Recognizing that the ancient Jewish mystical tradition arrived at these structures first and arguably worked them out with greater rigor and greater ethical seriousness is not an act of religious triumphalism. It is simply an accurate historical and textual observation, one that should give any Jew who has felt embarrassed or apologetic about their own tradition's mystical depth good reason to stand up straighter. And here is the deepest claim underneath everything we have covered, the one I have been building towards the whole time. The Torah's own account of universal law, given to Noah and all humanity, already tells you why this convergence exists and should be expected rather than treated as a coincidence needing a special explanation. If all human beings are made in the image of God, and if a basic universal moral law was given to the whole of humanity through Noah, long before Sinai, then it follows directly that any culture looking honestly and carefully at reality, Egyptian priests, Greek philosophers, Babylonian sages, should be expected to stumble onto fragments of the same underlying law, because that law was never proprietary to begin with. It was built into creation for everyone. The 613 commandments are not a competing universal law. They are Israel's specific, covenantal, and more demanding assignment on top of a foundation that was never exclusively theirs. This has practical consequences I hope you'll carry past today. If you are Jewish and have felt that engaging seriously with universal law, natural philosophy, or the world's wisdom traditions is somehow a betrayal of your own tradition or a step outside it, I hope these 12 episodes have shown you the opposite. Your own textual tradition already contains the deepest and most rigorously worked out version of nearly everything we have discussed, and studying it seriously is not a detour from Torah. It restores confidence in Torah by demonstrating how much explanatory and structural power it was already carrying unnoticed. And if you came to this series from outside Judaism, drawn by Manly Hall's lectures, by Hermeticism, by a general hunger to understand universal law, I hope you leave with a very specific piece of homework. Go to the source. Read Sefer Yetzirah. Read the accessible sections of the Zohar in a good annotated translation. Study Pirkei Avot, or Ethics of Our Fathers. You will find, I believe, that what drew you to Hermetic philosophy in the first place is present there too, often earlier, and worked out with a depth and an ethical seriousness that few other traditions have matched, because it was never separated, even for a moment, from the demand that you actually become a better person as a result. That, finally, is the real thread running through every episode of this series. Universal law, Hermetic principle, Torah law, different names, different degrees of specificity, arising in different centuries and different tongues, but all of them, at their most serious, converging on a single insistence, that the structure of the universe is not morally neutral, that you are woven into it more intimately than you usually notice, and that the only adequate response to discovering this is to live and treat the people around you accordingly.